So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
Mom was a very depressed woman. My mom was so depressed, she had the words, "In case of an accident, please do not resuscitate," tattooed across all of her children.
Good morning. It's Monday, Trust Your Mind Monday, May the 12th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and Trust Your Mind. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now the headlines for Monday, May the 12th. U.S. one step closer to 100% deal with Mexico, ending decades-long sewage crisis gripping vacation hotspot. New Jersey Assemblyman Paul Knitra says Democrats poured billions into offshore wind turbines that are never, ever going to get built. The Department of Interior just announced a new offshore drilling policy that will boost oil production in the Gulf of America by 100,000 barrels per day. Texas halts the construction of 400-acre Sharia law city in North Texas. On Sunday morning, Pope Leo XIV visited the Vatican grottos to celebrate a private mass near the tomb of St. Peter. Following the mass, the Pope spent time in silent prayer at the tombs of his predecessors. Breaking: Zelensky agrees to meet Putin in Turkey Thursday after pressure from Trump. FBI releasing files on COVID cover-up, Mar-a-Lago raid, Epstein case, and more, says Dan Bongino. And those were the headlines for Monday, May the 12th. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the political corner.
Wait for Hunter Biden back in the news, where the DOJ now argues a criminal oligarch paid off the first son to try and influence U.S. policy while President Biden was serving as VP. Some new documents out there, and Chad Pergram's seen them. He is live on Capitol Hill to take us through this story. What now in the chapter of Hunter Biden? Chad?
Bill, good morning. It's possible this could be the closest anyone has come to showing a transfer of money from overseas in exchange for potential influence over U.S. policy with Hunter Biden. Now, we've heard about Hunter Biden's ties to the Ukrainian energy firm Burisma. House investigators have probed that for months. But how about potential links to Romania? Now, prosecutors in Hunter Biden's tax case say he worked for Gabriel Popoviciu. He's a Romanian business magnate. Now, the allegation is that Hunter Biden and his business colleagues took $3 million in payments. Popoviciu faces a criminal investigation in Romania over a land deal. Special counsel David Weiss makes that very case in his filing in California. Weiss alleges they structured the deal for Hunter so it, quote, concealed the true nature of the work he was performing. Now, prosecutors say there were concerns about ramifications for President Biden. Popoviciu is expected to testify at Hunter Biden's tax evasion trial in Los Angeles that starts September 5th. He's charged with failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes over a 4-year period. The House's impeachment inquiry remains open. Republicans claim Hunter Biden sold his father as the brand and used the president for access.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Patriotic Short.
This is a brutal wake-up call to Democrats by Bill Maher, exposing one of their biggest problems.
I saw Kamala was on Saturday Night Live, as the losing candidate often is. It worked so well for Hillary. Let's run that back. And it just made me think, I'm sure every single member of the Saturday Night Live cast was a Harris supporter. But what if one of them wasn't? What if one of those cast members was for Trump? Would they have felt comfortable saying so? I really don't think so. They would have had to keep it to themselves. That's not a good place for us to be. I remember when, and that happens even more on the left. And I remember when Elon Musk hosted, and this is well before he was a Trumper. This is 3 or 4 years. He was just the richest man in the world. And a number of the cast members on Saturday Night Live, they didn't want to deal with him. They didn't exactly boycott, but they made it plain. And I was thinking, really? You have Elon Musk on your show for a week. You could talk to one of the most interesting, brilliant people the world has ever produced. Even about this issue that bothers you so much, that he's so rich and lots of people aren't. But no, you don't want to even deal with him. That's what I hate about the left.
And that's the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now I'm about to get motivated.
There is no testimony without a trial. It is supposed to be hard. That rough process is necessary. It's what makes you who you are.
You've got to be flexible, you've got to be versatile, and you've got to be adaptable. You've got to deal with circumstances such as you find them. Why? Because a lot of stuff is going to be thrown at you. Many times you're not going to have time to prepare. Sometimes people come out of nowhere with stuff, and you've got to stand up inside of yourself and handle it. You got to trust that you're going to be all right. You have no evidence to support it. It doesn't make sense. You can't point anything to say, well, this is why. There's no logic in it. There's no way in which you can logically and practically and realistically support it and prove it. That's why you got to have faith and you got to have trust. Somehow, some way, you got to have that you're going to come through. What is it that will make it worth it for you to face the rejections when you want to give up and things are working against you? What is it that will make it worth it for you to brainstorm and not be intimidated and say, I can do this? What is it that will make it worth it for you to raise the bar on yourself and say, I got some more stuff in me? What is it that will help you get back up again?
You better go inside. You still looking outside for the stuff that's already inside. You still looking for someone to save you when you already your superhero. You looking for some information from somebody when you already got what you need in your head. It's just time for you to get up and be the best version of you. When you get your butt knocked out, the only way you can get back up is from the inside out. I got what it takes. I got average skill, but I got phenomenal will. I can. I have the ability to do it. I will. I have the willpower to make it happen. I must. Somebody count on me. Arise. Get your butt up. You don't belong at the bottom, and it's time for you to get your butt from down there. It's time for you to stop being comfortable at the bottom. Get your butt up and get to where you're supposed to be. This ain't time to be whining. This ain't time to be crying. This is time to get focused. Once you start questioning yourself, you're already lost. Once you start questioning yourself, once you start going into a state of depression, and you start being by yourself, and you start thinking and wondering, once you start wondering, you're already lost. Even if you don't believe.
You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your product. You have to believe in your service. And you have to sell you every day. The biggest sale that I make every day that Les Brown, you can do this. I can beat this. If other people can do it, then it's possible that I can do it. You're going to break records. You're going to do some things when you challenge yourself, when you work on yourself, because you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. If you want to improve your income, you want to improve your circumstances, you want to improve your life, you got to first improve yourself. Spend more time on yourself than what you've been spending. Working on yourself, talking to yourself, overcoming the negative conversation, that inner dialogue that's going on all the time. It's very important. You owe that to yourself. And so learning how to empower yourself, you've got to learn to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to stand up inside yourself. Working on yourself, watching that inner dialogue, it will determine the quality of your life. Because you are creating your own production. You are the star of your show. You are the director. You're writing the script. And you will determine whether your life is a smash office hit or flop. You begin to realize that your dream and your gifts have so much meaning and so much value for you till your hunger for them will begin to push you past the fear. Your hunger to have them will give you a special drive. You want to become a risk taker. You want to raise the bar on yourself. Most people won't do that. Most people are going to think you're weird. They're going to think you're crazy. People are going to think you're crazy. Get away from people in your life that's hating. Get away from your family
open the business. Get away from your family members that ain't ever followed their dream. Get away from them. Don't expect people to understand you. Don't expect it to make sense to anybody why you've got to do this. There's some people that won't like you. Who do you think you are? You are arrogant. What do you think you can do? You think you can get away with that? I'm fighting with folks who don't even fight, but they got something to say about how we fight. You're not even fighting. You ain't doing nothing. And for those of us who get up and go out, you got something to say about how we do what we do it. Stop talking to us who perform. Stop critiquing us. Stop telling us what to do and how to do it. Build the kind of life that says I told you so without having to say a fucking word. Every fucking negative comment should trigger you into productive action. Every time somebody says something to you, you should go do whatever it is that is going to make them have to eat their words. Right then, right now. I've had my haters. I've had people who've come against me, who try to sabotage me. I'm like the lion. I'm not the gazelle. I don't need something external to motivate me. I find something within. That's what lions do. Lions don't cry. Lions don't give up. Lions don't quit. Lions hunt. That's what we do for a living. I must be the greatest, not because I'm cocky, but I gotta tell myself I'm the best if I'm gonna be the best. I gotta believe in me before anybody else believe in me.
Okay, now, meditate. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
Focus on what is yours alone. Remember then, if you deem what is by nature slavish to be free, and what is not your own to be yours, you will be shackled and miserable, blaming both gods and other people. But if you deem as your own only what is yours, and what belongs to others as truly not yours, then no one will ever be able to coerce or to stop you. You will find no one to blame or accuse. You will do nothing against your will. You will have no enemy. No one will harm you, because no harm can affect you. Epictetus, Enchiridion 1.3. After Captain James Stockdale was shot down over Vietnam, he endured 7.5 years in various prison camps. He was subjected to brutal torture, but always struggled to resist. Once, when his captors intended to force him to appear in a propaganda video, he purposely and severely injured himself to make that impossible. When Stockdale's plane was hit, he told himself that he was entering the world of Epictetus. He didn't mean that he was attending a philosophy seminar. He knew what he was to face when he crash-landed. He knew it wouldn't be easy to survive. Interviewed by Jim Collins for the business classic Good to Great, Stockdale explained there was one group that had the most trouble in prison. It was the optimists, he said. The ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they'd say, we're going to be out by Easter. And Easter would come and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving. And then it would be Christmas again. And they died of a broken heart. But Stockdale persevered and did make it out. He quenched his desires and focused exclusively on what he did control. Himself.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron.
What's the soul? The soul is not so much one element among many. So I've got, various elements, and soul is one of them. Rather, soul is the all-embracing or all-grounding reality. Soul includes, if you want, the whole of my life. The whole of my life in relation to God. Soul is not some little thing inside. Rather, soul is that which contains the whole of me. If the soul is rightly ordered, it can handle anything. Worldly success or worldly failure. Popularity, unpopularity, honor, dishonor. Rightly ordered, the soul can handle all of those situations. Disordered, it can handle nothing. Whether you have honor or dishonor, whether you have health or sickness, whether they love you or hate you, if the soul is disordered, or if you've lost your soul, then none of those situations will benefit you. Profits a man nothing to gain the whole world if he's lost his soul.
And that was His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, a harried legislator may conclude, consciously or subconsciously, that the friendly man who smiled at him at the cocktail party last week was a good person who would not deceive him and whose opinion can be trusted safely. It is by considerations such as these that officials may dispose of your money, your effort, and your future. Unquote. And that's Ayn Rand from the chapter The Pull Peddlers, from the book Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, gaslighting. Narcissists are like toddlers. They are unstable and know exactly how far to push you to lose your sanity before reverting back to a lovable individual. This is manipulation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Maria, then Stu.
Here.
Well, I think it is.
The US and China announce a trade deal. Both sides will cut tariffs by 115%. Very few people were expecting tariff cuts as big as that. This deal lasts 90 days and the talks will continue. Investors absolutely love it. The Dow up roughly 1,000 points at the opening bell. It's not often you see that first thing on a Monday morning, but the news flow is very positive. Dow up 1,000, S&P up about 173 points. That's 3%. And look at the Nasdaq, nearly 800 points higher, close to a 4% gain. One group of stocks, though, on the downside, pharmaceuticals. Why is that? Because the president is about to sign an executive order cutting prescription drug prices. Foreigners pay less than Americans. Trump will fix that. We will pay the lower prices that foreigners pay. Less revenue for pharma, though, and that's why pharma stocks are down. Bitcoin, that's part of the rally, moving now to 103,900. However, interest rates are elevated. The 10-year Treasury yield getting close to 4.5% again, and the 2-year right around 4% even. You're at 4.008 right now. All right, on the show today, the rest of the good news. President Trump pushes Putin and Zelensky together. They'll meet Thursday face-to-face in Istanbul, Turkey. The president twisted arms and got India and Pakistan to agree to a ceasefire. That appears to be holding. And the last remaining American hostage in Gaza will be released soon. The president had a lot to do with his release. Edan Alexander is from New Jersey. Wait. There's more. Not everyone will consider this good news, however. Trump is heading to Saudi Arabia, where he will accept the gift of a Boeing 747 from the royal family of Qatar. Some question the ethics of that, especially since Trump may use the plane for his personal use after he leaves office. So let's get this thing moving. You're going to see a huge rally, and you're going to see the president sign an executive order cutting drug prices. He'll probably answer questions. You'll hear him. Monday, May 12th, 2025, Varney and Company is about to begin.
And there it is, Stu Varney, Nonprofit News Now. Thank you. Now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing, mean? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, if you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. So I was having a conversation with a guy the other day. Well, sort of. He just somebody I didn't even really know, and I'm doing business, and minding my own business, basically. And this guy walks up to me and asks my advice, saying that he has some kind of problems with raising his kids. And immediately I knew exactly what this was all about. Because at first, the very first reaction I had was one of kind of confusion and well, let's just say confusion, because I don't really know this guy. Why is he asking me? And then I realized what it was that he was doing. He was validating the book that Hillary Clinton wrote called It Takes a Village. And the book is about raising children. And the theme of it is that it takes a village to raise children, not a family. It's to de-emphasize families and re-emphasize the role of government in everybody's lives. And it's crap. So I knew what he was doing. He wants to get me involved, to get me used to the idea of having a village to raise children. But I know that it's baloney. So what I told him was, when I realized what he was trying to do, was that what he needed to do was take his children and put them into foster care until such time as he could find his ass with both hands. And he didn't know what to do with that. It surprised the hell out of him because he's expecting me to just go along with the program. So he just stood there and stared at me. I went ahead and completed my business and left him alone. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the weekly Spreaker stats for the week of May 4th through May the 10th. Overall downloads remained the same. Top 4 countries: United States was up, Israel was up, France was up, and Australia was down. And those are the stats from Spreaker for the week of May 4th through May the 10th. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo.
That it's possible that we could see some of these members of Congress arrested because one was seen on video basically body slamming a female officer. And there's the video we're showing to our viewers now. So
there we go. They don't care. Maria Bartiromo doesn't care, and nobody at Fox cares about the content. They're completely uninterested in the content. All they care about is having video to show to their viewers so that they can get ratings and make profits. Non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now from Maria Bartiromo with her Sunday Futures program.
This is the largest increase in the debt ceiling ever in our country, and it indicates that not only will the deficit this year exceed $2 trillion, that they're planning on it exceeding $2 trillion next year, which to me means they're not really cutting. And if you take the entitlements away, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, if you don't do anything to those entitlements, there's nothing left really to cut. That's not fiscally conservative, and as long as that's in there, I can't support the bill.
There we go. So that was Rand Paul, who is the blood clot of Congress. He is he caucuses with the Republicans, but he calls himself a libertarian. And the Libertarian Party is a left-wing party. The Libertarians, the Objectivists, and the Socialists, they're all on the left because all of them look for paradise. They're looking for a perfect society. Socialism wants a perfectly social society. Libertarians want the perfectly liberal society. Objectivists want the perfectly rational society. None of those things are going to happen. We have never had a perfect society. We have no perfect society now. Therefore, we will never have a perfect society. Plus, you add to that the socialists are a potent force because they're willing to initiate the use of force in order to achieve their objectives. However, objectivists and libertarians are not. So all they end up doing and being is roadblocks. The only thing that they can do is say no. And that's what he does here. He doesn't say, he doesn't do anything constructive in the situation. All he does is get in the way. And he sucks for it. And I hope that he is thrown out of office sooner rather than later. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is a little excerpt from Media Buzz, and to show you, this is what we're getting for our cable TV money.
I think the same things were said about Pope Francis. He said a more tolerant tone, but didn't do much to actually change. Didn't do enough for the progressives, and many conservatives didn't like him.
There you go. I mean, what did he just say? Nothing. He said absolutely nothing. And this is what we're paying $200, $250 a month for. Nonprofit news now. Thank you. Now, new book. I was doing The Rise to Rebellion, but YouTube kept blocking my entire podcast episode of that. So now I'm switching to a new title called Trust Your Mind by Janera Narenberg, and this is the introduction.
Introduction. In the Arctic Circle, on the archipelago of Svalbard, Norway, a long, narrow, rectangular concrete structure, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, jets out from a snowy mountain range overlooking the Greenland Sea. Inside, there are over 1.2 million seeds preserved securely in the vault to ensure their continuity on planet Earth in case their species goes extinct. The barren, eerily beautiful surrounding landscape is populated by polar bears, who outnumber the human population, and yet man-made creations like the Seed Vault, the North Pole Expedition Museum, and other exploration sites dot the island. To imagine the place is to sense both desperation and perseverance in the face of harsh weather, as well as optimism and hope about our ability to wonder. With smaller seed banks located around the world in most countries, the vault is used as a safety depository for other countries, a backup in the face of war or natural disaster. The Philippines, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Lebanon, for example, have all faced severe damage to their seed banks. Lebanon had to retrieve seeds from the vault and replant them to spawn new seeds before redepositing seeds back to Svalbard. The vault is a much-needed global repository for the world's biodiversity. Now, let's say you were to conjure up a distinct vault of your own, a repository of the world's great art, books, and music, similar to a grand library. Let's say it's digital, and with a touch of the screen you can access any important historical work. Your vault is large, with different viewing areas, and you have 2 or 3 people working inside simply to help you navigate around. This vault is just for you, not the public, and you revel in the fact that all the world's knowledge is available to you, making you feel a kind of peace, freedom, and satisfaction that you can squeeze out of life all the intellectual juice you want. You even invite a friend or 2 inside from time to time, just to share your joy with them. Then, one day, you discover that one of your visitors has a disagreement with one of the people who works inside the vault. The argument isn't overly loud or threatening, but voices are slightly raised, and the event makes you look over from another room. Your friend and the worker, let's call them a librarian, both brush it off as though nothing had happened, but later you learn more. It turns out that your friend asked to see the music video for their favorite punk band, and the librarian could not show it or would not show it. The reason was not exactly clear. Your friend has seen the video before and knows it exists, and they're perplexed at the librarian's refusal. You are also perplexed because you never gave the librarian instructions to remove anything or hide something. Questions start bouncing around in your mind. Unfortunately, you also discover that many more pieces of significant artistic history were removed without your permission. The questions and confusion turn into hurt and anger. Your precious vault has been violated and vandalized. Except there's no graffiti. There's simply the awareness that there are gaps where there once was art. Now, imagine an actual physical library somewhere, in a small town in the United States, dutifully serving children, students, adult readers, and families. One day, the director of the library publishes a report about the importance of preserving access to all kinds of ideas, not just those acceptable to one half of the country or the other. A few weeks later, because she mentioned pluralism and the importance of not limiting ideas and knowledge, the director is told she can no longer work at the library, even though she has been its guardian for 11 years. She thought she was doing her job well, worrying about how libraries were increasingly only ordering certain kinds of books and leaving other kinds of books out. But her colleagues didn't like that she wanted to cast such a wide net of information and access to books. They wanted to limit the knowledge they were offering to their community. So they terminated her position. This is a true story that happened not only once in very recent memory, but that repeats often nowadays in various forms. And of course, it's not limited to librarians, but includes actors, television producers, school teachers, writers and journalists, professors, and many other professionals engaged in the work of media and communication. It's also happening inside friend groups, families, workplaces, and communities where a wrong remark or comment results in banishment, and contradictory ideas result in stunned faces and emotional shutdown. Gathering places and human relationships that used to be precious vaults of safety, connection, community, and knowledge sharing now feel increasingly unsafe. That is, with emotions on constant high alert and a widespread inability to regulate our own selves and how we communicate, people now live in fear of saying the wrong thing because nuanced inquiry and dialogue have all but disappeared. We don't feel comfortable asking questions. We don't trust in the power of conversation anymore. We're scared and don't want to rock the boat. No one speaks up, and everyone stays silent. This is self-silencing. The effects of self-silencing. Within an entrenched group identity, even under the guise of belonging, such as to a political party, religious organization, or class, self-censoring often takes place to preserve group cohesion. It makes sense that people shut down parts of themselves, but it's unhealthy and can even be dangerous. What do you do, for example, when you are caught up in the swell of groupthink? That is, when you are shunned in your social circle for saying something that is not absolutely aligned with widespread opinion, or when mobs of people you don't know start attacking you on the internet for a less than popular point of view. Groupthink has a swaying effect on human beings, like a wave pulling minds into uniformity without their consent. The current is strong, and its effects are scary. I'm not just talking about mobs and cancel culture as they relate to Hollywood, celebrities, and other famous figures we see go down in flames publicly. This self-silencing climate, as I call it, has trickled down to everyday people. You and your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your family members, your communities. It has impacted everyone's ability to have honest, open conversations, our ability to ask curious questions about the world around us, and to find nuanced answers. Unfortunately, the internet, that wonderful technology meant to connect us, is a major culprit in dividing us. The emergence of the internet in the last decades of the 20th century initially elicited worldwide excitement about knowledge sharing and bringing people together, but soon after its emergence, Especially with the rise of blogs and then social media, scholars and users alike began to feel uneasy about the rather distorted view of reality that might emerge. Hateful comments that once appeared under YouTube videos would soon begin to spread more widely with algorithmic social media. Exciting news, such as the rise of female CEOs, saw unfettered bullying tearing the women down. Platforms like Facebook and X would soon become places where haters would find other haters, and the victims of those haters would band together, cementing their identity categories and isolating themselves further. It was most often women and minorities at the receiving end of cyberbullying, and they created fierce groups in opposition to unknown, anonymous posters. As algorithms became more sophisticated and companies, including news sites, grew to depend more on clicks, viewers were served up repeated content pertaining to their narrow interests or identity categories, which created virtual iron walls around checkboxes like physical appearance. When a group of people unknowingly limit their thinking to restrictive identity norms or a virtual bubble with narrow information, whether they are the attackers or the victims, the groupthink can be blinding. No one is authentically themselves anymore, and the quiet questions only increase. No one knows how to talk and disagree respectfully, and people have no patience for differing viewpoints and opinions. But people also crave these very things. They crave real talk and openness, and the freedom to engage confidently and curiously without fear. The presence of toxic fear has wide-ranging effects on our overall well-being. Self-silencing is strongly correlated with depression, according to numerous studies carried out in the past 20 years. And with depression and self-silencing come other negative outcomes like loneliness, feelings of alienation, and low self-confidence. The toxic effects show up in workplaces, intimate relationships, friend groups, online forums, political discussions, religious groups, and more. Especially in a culture where we are encouraged to be ourselves and express ourselves as individuals, the feelings inside us when we don't fully express our truth in an authentic way can be doubly harmful, because not only are we not being true to ourselves, we are also not living up to a core value that is upheld in our modern-day society. No matter what stage of life you are in, you have almost certainly observed a widespread societal discomfort with disagreement and a preference for discussing simple topics over nuanced concepts. We are all dealing with the consequences of a world where conversation is constrained by inauthentic parameters of acceptability, and we think according to the group we belong to, rather than the conclusions we have drawn through our own reasoning. To move away from groupthink, we need to relearn how to think as individuals, trust our own thoughts, and learn how to communicate those thoughts with confidence and authenticity. The antidote to self-silencing is not just free speech. It is free thought, where one is equipped and empowered to form opinions using critical thinking. To think critically and communicate confidently are vital skills many of us have lost or were never taught. And part of being a critical thinker is to acknowledge the reality that there is a vast diversity of thought in the world, and that there is beauty in the clash of opinions that differ from our own. For a variety of reasons, from education to religious indoctrination to gender bias, sitting with complexity and nuance and differing opinions is something that many parents, educators, and community leaders simply do not make time for. It is a rare breed of person, family, or community that sits patiently with young inquiring minds to help flesh out ways of thinking that are inquisitive, critical, open, and agile. But we need such thinkers now more than ever. Critical thinking should become a core value for all of us in the coming decades. My story. In order to tackle fear and develop empathy and critical thinking skills, And to wrap our minds around the vast range of viewpoint diversity in the world, we must weave together several overarching ideas, a bridging that has been central to my career. As a journalist chronicling psychology over the past 10 years, and with an educational background in political theory and public health, I have always prioritized cross-disciplinary engagement. The subject of much of my work up until this point has been neurodiversity, or neurological diversity, the nuanced but often misunderstood concept that diversity of human cognition is valuable. The idea of neurodiversity embraces the myriad ways in which our brains process and respond to the world, and encourages respect for diverging viewpoints and perspectives. My first book, Divergent Mind, explored why certain neurological traits like attention differences are often overlooked in women, and how society can benefit from encouraging those differences to flourish. This focus had grown out of my own experience realizing that many autistic and ADHD traits seemed to describe me, and learning about the ways in which I'd masked certain traits to get along in society. Although neurodiversity was a relevant topic in the psychology world, I never thought of neurodiversity as being limited to psychology. Diversity of thought is something to be applied in every sphere, every arena and field. At its core, the idea of neurodiversity is heterodox, which refers to embracing diversity of thought and unconventional viewpoints. Being a heterodox thinker has always been a core value of mine, professionally and personally. I grew up in San Francisco, in a single-parent household with 3 siblings, where our neighbors, extended family, and classmates were majority non-white folks. We were the minority, as white kids living in the black neighborhood of the Fillmore and attending a public Asian American school in the far west foggy avenues of San Francisco's Sunset neighborhood. I was raised among several religious and racial groups in my own large extended family of Catholics, Jews, Baha'is, and Muslims. My classmates ranged from unhoused people to first-generation immigrants to troublemakers to high achievers. Living in the liberal bastion of free speech meant coming of age within a culture that included community health programs, Black Panther solidarity, deadheads, and more. I am a millennial, so my time was the 90s, but the culture and ethos of the 60s hippie era were passed down to me, and I hold those values dear. At UC Berkeley, I designed my major in political theory and race relations, and just after graduation, I worked at the well-known Glide Memorial Health Clinic in the Tenderloin, the epicenter of the drug and housing crisis in San Francisco. My roots are in staunch left liberalism. I crave and love difference. As a kid growing up in a multi-faith, multi-class, multiracial family in a progressive neighborhood, I had always been drawn to many-sided conversations and was comfortable being surrounded by different views and backgrounds. I have always been a question asker, a sensitive kid who craved real talk, real answers to life's questions, and I was never one to go along with a group. If something doesn't make sense to me, I can easily switch ideas or viewpoints. If something doesn't sit well with me, I have no problem saying no or backing away from a situation, conversation, or person. When I later learned more about my own mind and the neurodiversity framework, I committed to lifting others up and celebrating those differences, not masking them as we are often conditioned to do. However, I soon discovered that groupthink can exist in and permeate any framework. And while I had embraced differences in the way our minds work and knew that I thrived when faced with multiple perspectives, I found that I often felt social pressure to approach public and online conversations with caution. I started noticing that there were things I wasn't saying. I had thoughts I was too afraid to type, questions too afraid to ask a friend, and over time, this gnawed at me. I've always been someone to advocate for being fully seen and heard, and here I was engaging in severe self-silencing, inadvertently isolating myself along the way, especially in the midst of vitriolic behavior I witnessed online from people I thought valued open discourse. The black and white, all or nothing ways of thinking I saw across social media seemed to be rewarded with likes and shares, and I didn't understand how people were being pulled into such polarized sides on issues with so little information or context. I felt inclined to ask questions to get a better, deeper understanding of someone's perspective, but the online climate didn't feel like a welcoming place to do so, and I would always opt to do my own silent research instead of utilizing online conversation and dialogue. I also felt confused because my actual lived experience didn't match many depictions of community and culture in the media or the news, and I began increasingly meeting other families in real life, like mine, who embodied unique cross-sections of humanity. But no one I encountered seemed to express those perspectives online, in the crowded worlds of social media or mainstream news. I sensed there was a mismatch. And when I started talking to more people about this, I discovered there was fear, apprehension, and self-silencing because there were no welcoming spaces to share about a different, more complex kind of reality. As I delved further into what was happening and saw how our conversations were being drained of nuance and dissenting opinions, I realized that this phenomenon overlapped with the topics to which I'd devoted my career. While I had previously focused more specifically on cognitive diversity, it turns out viewpoint diversity is its more expansive umbrella, and all of us are at risk of depriving ourselves of the rich diversity of perspectives and opinions in the world when the nuances of life remain veiled. I had been sitting silently with these thoughts for years. I started with the seed of a question about what I felt was happening to our minds, bodies, and mental health as a result of self-silencing in our online world. But once I decided to pursue the topic as my next project, it took mere hours for stories from others to come pouring out. I was not alone. It turns out we are all masking and holding questions inside. I soon discovered many other people like myself who were open to the joy, wonder, and complexity of holding multiple challenging viewpoints and thinking critically in dialogue together. I decided to write my next book for them. In this book, I take my background in journalism, psychology, and public health from my days studying at Harvard and Berkeley to reporting for CNN, the Greater Good Science Center, and elsewhere, and apply these lenses to the urgent problems of isolation, loneliness, and polarization that are worsening under a culture of self-censorship and lack of tolerance for differing opinions. In addition to telling the tale of our current collective emotional interiority, throughout the book we will meet people who dared to step out of the comfort of groupthink and embraced nuanced and complex thinking more openly and publicly. Part 1 of the book presents a tour of groupthink, from its psychological and social origins to its effects in our modern online era to the extremes we now find ourselves in. Part 2 guides us through the first steps in escaping groupthink, deciphering our own thoughts, tolerating the discomfort of breaking away, and shifting to a new way of interacting socially, one that embraces healthy friction and debate and doesn't view complexity and connection as mutually exclusive. Part 3 presents a vision for the future, one in which a society of free thinkers is able to thrive and embrace diversity of thought, online and off. My aim is to guide you to draw your own conclusions by introducing perspectives from which to view and appraise contemporary groupthink and how it shows up in your families, friendships, classrooms, social media, religious circles, workplaces, news channels, and pop culture. I cannot tell you what to think, nor do I aim to, but I think I can expose you to some things to think about on your journey to being a sharper thinker and conversationalist as the world becomes more complex and polarized. This book, at its heart, is an exploratory mission through the deep emotional waters that swirl and froth below the noise of our crowded world. Underneath loud arguments, whether online or at home or on political panels, are vulnerable emotions. But that is rarely talked about, and detecting what's below the surface is a rare skill. I am intimately familiar with the inner turmoil caused by both the backlash of speaking my mind and the anguish of self-silencing. As a public writer, I've had to wade through tricky waters, and the courage to sit with discomfort and uncertainty must be developed if we are to commit to transforming our relationships with others into pillars of fierce strength and growth. This book is about my exploration and encounters, but also what you can learn about thinking critically and expressing yourself honestly in the face of resistance and societal pressure. It's somewhat of an outside-in approach, first exploring why, in an increasingly virtual village, we fall into groupthink and cling to rigid identities. Then, looking inward, we'll explore how to decipher our opinions and feelings, independently of friend groups, office politics, religious norms, and cultural trends. Finally, we consider how we can communicate these complex thoughts confidently and cultivate compassionate conversations that hold space for disagreement and connection. My hope is that you will find this useful, not only in the online world, but also as you move through the physical world, chatting with family members, making parenting choices, or learning how to be a good friend. Self-silencing touches us all in different ways and is reshaping our lives right under our own noses or under our thumbs, inside our smartphones and outward into social norms, and impacting how we talk and relate to one another, how we treat one another. We are at a crucial inflection point in our culture, and the way we navigate these treacherous waters will determine the fate of our future and how we feel about one another. We know we are complex, layered creatures, but that truth is threatened in the online world with its excessive focus on hard-edged, polarizing categories and algorithms that funnel us into binary ideologies. This book will penetrate the veil of social media and break down the silos that have formed over many years. Taking on the mission of writing this book was initially compelled by a sense of urgency. That urgency was then tempered by months and months of careful marination. Our journey on this mission must take a similarly measured approach, knowing the challenges we face. We are hungry for solutions to the quiet frustrations of self-silencing and lack of dialogue, but there's no quick fix, and we need guidance and reassurance about how to reemerge and reengage. This book offers that salve, generating conversations about how to create a healthier climate in which to see and celebrate differences of all kinds, lean into curiosity and openness, and embrace a plethora of perspectives and opinions. I offer a roadmap and a space to question together. My own journey with self-silencing has been one of shock, confusion, stillness, and ultimately triumph and empowerment. In discovering people who value the questions and wanderings and complicated layers of life just as much as I do, I feel more comfortable opening myself up to the nuances of hard, pressing issues. I am motivated by love of ideas and communication and freedom of expression to look around me in a new way, a new light, and entertain competing views and visions, explanations that don't always match what I once thought to be right or true. This shift has helped me feel more myself as I engage with the world and stay open, rather than anguishing over the correct version of self-expression or shutting down. For years, I was afraid to express certain opinions, and this book challenged me to live my life freely and openly again, and I hope it does the same for you. The challenge is not for the faint of heart, but the payoffs are monumental. If one of our goals as human beings is authentic social harmony, there is a much greater chance of that happening when people know who they are and know that having different views is actually supported and celebrated. Imagine a world where connection doesn't depend on conformity and agreement. Diversity of perspective is a global resource to be harnessed, a treasure in need of preservation, and we should all get to experience the joy of sharing ourselves freely, being challenged, and growing beyond what we ever imagined.
And that was the introduction to Trust Your Mind from Janara Narenberg, Divergent Mind Embracing Nuance in a World of Self-Silencing, and I call it self-censorship. So we're going to give this book a shot. I've read a little bit of it, and it seems promising that we're going to have some information about self-censorship and how to defeat it. And next week, Chapter 1. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host.